Machines are getting smarter, faster, more efficient than ever. They can write poems, compose music, make movies, and even predict our behavior. But they do not wonder. They do not hesitate and doubt. They do not feel the weight and joy of being alive or being in love. This is a story about two men who never met, lived very different lives, yet dreamed the same dream. About machines that exist not to be useful, but to make life meaningful. A story about two mechanics of meaning who build machines from everything they could find on a local junkyard. Their machines wasted energy, their time and money, made noise, and did absolutely nothing except remind us what it feels like to be human. In an age of artificial intelligence, we ask a dangerous question. What if the most important machines are the ones that are not efficient?
They say you scientists are supposed to be smart.
About 60 kilometers southwest of Paris lies a small town called Millet-la-Forêt. In the 70s, Swiss sculptor Jean Tinguely and his partner, artist Niki de Sanfal, made their home there. What they not yet known was that the rest of their lives would become inseparable from a strange place nearby. A forest locals called the Poor Man's Forest. Jean Tinguely dreamed of wheels, gears, belts, and absurd mechanisms that served no other purpose than to provoke astonishment. In the early 60s, he became one of the pioneers of the kinetic art, building large mechanical sculptures from scrap metal and parts of discarded machinery, often designed to collapse, explode, or destroy themselves in front of the audience. Born in Switzerland, a country famous for precision mechanics and flawless clockworks, Tinguely saw his work as a rebellion against the cold rigidity of machines and their inhuman impact on human life. In the late 60s, he secretly bought a piece of land deep inside the forest and began working on his life project. At first, he imagined a gigantic mechanical monster. Eventually, this vision transformed into a colossal cyclops head emerging from the ground, as if its body was buried beneath the forest. For 2 decades, with only 4 collaborators, Niki, 2 fellow sculptors, and a welder found through a newspaper ad, Tinguely built his impossible machine. He rejected galleries, museums, and capital. He believed art should meet the street, to be smelled, heard, touched. So he decided to finance the Cyclops entirely himself. His idea was radical. The sculpture would not be placed in a gallery. It would become the gallery. A space people could enter, walk through, get lost inside. The Cyclops became a monument to a small anarchistic utopia, a well-organized absurdity. In one of the interviews he said, "While working in the forest, we dream of utopia and boundless action. I know this is the illusory, and our posture reflects the search for a free and useless act. In this way, we are happy as long as they let us work. Like madmen, of course." Locals watched in confusion. Some vandalized it, others broke in. Tinguely responded with humor, adding fake entrances, staircases leading nowhere, corridors without exit. But over the time, the work became exhausting. The Cyclops began to resemble a fortress. In the early 80s, Tinguely lost the will to finish it. Then, in 1987, a French government delegation visited the site. Over lunch, unexpectedly, Tinguely offered to donate the Cyclops to the state of France, on one condition, that the state would maintain it and open it to the public. They agreed. The Cyclops stands 23 meters tall. It weighs about 600 tons. Its mouth spills water like a waterfall. Its face is covered with thousands of mirrors, reflecting the surrounding forest. At the back of his head, behind a giant ear, a railway wagon rests, just to make you wonder how the hell did it get there. Inside, gear roars, belt spins endlessly. Metal balls climb upward on conveyor belts only to rattle violently back down again. It is useless, and precisely because of that, profound. Jean Tinguely died in 1991. The Cyclops was opened to the public in 1994. Its mechanisms still turn, and visitors still stare surprised and astonished. In southern Austria, among rolling hills and orchards, lies the village of Edelsbach. You would never end up there by accident. I only did because a friend insisted. I had to see something profound. Inside a small extension of a typical farmhouse stood an impossible object. At first glance, it looked like a giant clockwork that wanted to become an amusement park, but failed spectacularly. There were toys, souvenirs, motors, belts, wheels, lights and whistles mounted on a colorful construction. When the caretaker flipped a few switches, the machine became alive. It squeaked, rattled, rotated. Lights were flashing all over while I tried to comprehend what's that all about. It was the Weltmaschine, world machine, built by a quiet farmer named Franz Gzellmann. Franz wanted to become an engineer. He had skilled hands and sharp mind, but life on the farm allowed no such dreams. After 4 years of school, hard labor on his farm became his destiny. In 1958, he saw a photograph of the atomium, the futuristic molecular structure built for the Brussels World Expo. At that moment, he heard a call of his diamond. At 48 years old, he found his life mission. He traveled abroad for the first time to see Expo in Brussels, returned home with a plastic model of the atomium, and began building his world. Franz gathered most materials for his machine from discarded old junk. Every Sunday he would travel 2 hours away by ox cart to the nearest town, where he would find a new element for his mechanical world at the flea market, drink a beer, and head back. Franz initially planned a much smaller machine with a rotating model of the atomium at its center. But after a few years of construction and completed plans, he no longer wanted to stop. The machine began to spread throughout the workshop, and he started adding more and more new elements to the original mechanism. Over the years, the world machine grew larger, and its mechanisms became increasingly complex. The gears, belts, springs, and levers powered by 25 electric motors, were eventually joined by a plastic Christ on a blinking cross, a golden Venetian gondola, a question mark-shaped thermometer, a wooden model of a windmill, ceramic eagle, a children's spaceship, a disco ball with rotating lights, and a whole pile of other junk arranged with bouquets of plastic flowers and illuminated with colorful flashing lights from a Christmas tree. From each journey he made, Franz returned with some new find that he had sniffed out to mount into his world machine. Unlike many other junk eccentrics, he didn't just hoard things, but systematically connected them to each other and structured them into a higher order system. Everything was in its place, and everything had its purpose. He worked alone and in secret. He was considered an eccentric. He was creating something that was not out of this world. It was a mechanical vision of his own cosmology. In 1981, after 23 years of constructing, Franz told his wife the machine was finished. Shortly after, he died. His machine wasn't just worldly, it was sacred. Franz didn't create the machine to ease the hard work on the farm. He created it to produce meaning and give sense to his difficult life. Each of its elements has a story into which he invested all his effort, time and money. He followed his imagination, listened to what his diamond whispered to him, and in his modest workshop created a monument to boundless imagination that would inspire generations of more or less random visitors of Edelsbach. It is said that Archimedes, the greatest mechanic of his era, have stated that the work of an engineer and of every craft that serves the practical needs of life is dishonorable and vulgar. He was a heir to a tradition that believed mechanics was trickery, that the lever disrupts the natural order of things. When he first applied his mathematical principles to the design of mechanical devices, he was aware that he had crossed the boundary between philosophy and craft. Thus were born today's science and technology. In pre-industrial societies, technology was limited to simple hand tools. In industrial societies, it became a servant of profit. In the information age, it has become a tool of mass control. We now live inside a machine that demands efficiency, speed, and optimization. There's less and less space for slowness, for uselessness, for wonder and imagination. Jean Tinguely and Franz Gzelman never met, yet both devoted their lives to machine without purpose, machine that produced meaning and wonder instead of useful products. Their technology was metaphorical, rebellious, poetic. They remind us that machines do not have to enslave us. They can still be like altars, totems of imagination and meaning. When meaning can be generated instantly, it becomes disposable. But when meaning is built, bolt by bolt, year by year, it becomes sacred. Jean Tinguely and Franz Gzelman did not engineer solutions, they engineered relationship between human and machine, between soul and matter, between physics and imagination. Their works still stand as a mechanical resistance against a world obsessed with optimization. They whisper a dangerous truth, that not everything valuable can be computed, that not everything meaningful should be efficient, that some machines should exist only to remind us what it feels like to be human. We live in a time when machines no longer only manipulate matter, they manipulate symbols. They write, they speak, They predict. They imitate thought. Artificial intelligence promises meaning at the speed of calculation. But calculation is not understanding, and prediction is not wisdom. Jean Tinguely's machines were not efficient by design. They wasted energy. They made noise. They broke down. Franz Gzelman's machine did not solve a single problem. It just caused him a lot of problems. It did not increase productivity. It did not scale. And yet, both created something that no algorithm can generate: experience and action. Their machines demanded time. They required the human body to walk, to listen, to think, to touch, to learn, to experience. In contrast, digital machines want us frictionless, weightless, reduced to data. In the industrial age, machines replaced our muscles. In the digital age, machines replace our cognition. And in the coming age, they may attempt to replace our imagination. This is why engineers of meaning matter more than ever, because meaning must not be automated. Meaning emerges from our limitations, from our efforts and errors, from the courage to build something that makes no sense on the market, but it makes sense for everyone who experienced it. Jean Tinguely built machines that laughed at efficiency. Franz Gzelman built a machine that turned a farmer's life into a cosmology. They remind us that technology is never neutral. Their machine encodes a worldview, ethics and aesthetics. The question is not whether machines will become more intelligent than us. The question is, what kind of humans they will produce. Henry Miller once said that after death, he wanted to become a park. Jean Tinguely became a forest machine. Franz Gzelman became a mechanical universe. Their creations still move, still rattle, still whisper a dangerous idea: that technology should serve the human life, not profit. This was Wonderology Department. In the next episode, we're going to explore the invisible architecture of sound. If my thoughts resonate with you, you're welcome to subscribe and join our tribe. And don't forget, keep wondering.